Okay, for the next project, building something from nothing really. In other words, using all scrap material available and freely given, and creating a little set of steps here to go to the front end of the compost toilet, which is long overdue now. So I'm creating something from nothing because I really don't know what I'm building at the moment, so I'm just going to play with materials until the idea formalizes. That art is in allowing the unconscious to flow and giving it form. It has to speak to you even before it's created. When it's rough on the foot, it's from the way that you took. You're being led by the blind. Now you're running out of time. Grope through that darkness, reach out that hand. Keep looking onward, you might catch me around. And you ask how I leave this place. You're lost, you don't even know which ways to turn. And I say take the high road, baby. I'm falling, yeah. We're heading towards the sun. So one thing I come to realise is because I'm using the materials to hand and I'm not actually buying anything. I found some old metal brackets from a pergola. And these are some of the timbers from that. And the rest of it, God knows where it came from. But I'm just accumulating wood, so I have to use it before it starts to rot. So one thing I've realised is that I'm actually making it quite steep, this staircase, which is a complete contrast to the other side, which is built like stepped pallets. And actually I don't mind that. This is not going to be there, so I'm going to build a platform here. This is just to allow some sort of adjustment at the end, whether I want to go a bit deep into the ground or because it's actually pinned into the ground at the moment, or raise it up a bit, and we'll see what we can do. So these are the next steps I'm working on. You see, these are the next ones I'm working on, and same fashion. Gonna slot down into the next step and fasten itself to that, so that the whole integrity of the structure gets a little bit more stronger if all the steps are joined together, you see. So I've got a dilemma in the middle because there's a brick or block preventing this from pushing backwards. And if I can push that backwards, then I can get the bracket down onto the back of the next step, which is here. See? So what I've got to do is just cut out the groove so that I can push that into the block. I'll show you what I mean. Now have a look. That's the block. The blocks, what I need to do is cut out that little square. So that block, the corner of that block there, is just going to fit into this corner here. That means I have to push forward a bit more, you see? Let's see how we go. So if you forgot the novel on the way that you took, oh, catch the bottle or die, babe. Go through the darkness, reach out our hands, keep looking onward. You might catch me around, and you ask how you leave this place. You're lost, you don't even know which way to turn. And I say take the high road, baby. Fall in, yeah. We're heading towards the song. Yeah. Just the corner of the block that's going to go in now. If I need to cut out more, then I'll just, and that piece will fall out as well. Look at that. I almost got it first time. Remember, I'm not in for a swim. I have my hair like this. This isn't an equilateral triangle or anything like that. Yeah, I just put one beam going up on one side to follow the vertical here, and another beam to go up the other side to follow the other vertical, and they met on the top there, which I'm going to cut off, remember. So you can do all this on paper, but what I'm trying to say is that you can just do it by offering it up, adjusting, cutting bits out here, lowering this, raising that, and eventually you'll get it. So the problem here is that that's quite a drop. Yeah, you can see the spirit level. That's 1 inch. I'd say that's 2.5 centimeters, 3 centimeters on a 1.5 meter length, or maybe a bit less than that. That's quite a drop. That's what you want on a roof pitch. And so if I try to raise this, right, and then I've got this problem here. I've got a gap, so this isn't attached to this anymore. I can put a piece of wood in there, I guess. But actually, there may be another way of making this work. Just pacify the mind and allow the ideas to arise. There's so many options here, like I could cut the end of this off and change the length of that. You can try and extend the next step down further back. Can groove this top step so that the other end sits down a little bit lower. Tales of the Black Dog, Part 1. A glint of armour flashed in the undergrowth. The figure of a soldier lay writhing as the blood left a trail, leading from the track. A centurion, no doubt, still half conscious and waiting for assistance, still one hand on his sword's hilt. He struggled to skew his head to one side, looking for a higher vantage point. He seemed hopeless. The quietness, though, was suddenly broken by a scuffle in the scrub oak. The soldier quickly turned his head in the same direction. He clawed himself up, trying to find the strength to meet his quandary, his breath stilled in the silence. A black head peered through the shrubs, sniffing nonchalantly, occasionally peering up at the now propped body of the soldier, who had settled down to relax his pose. The dog, on finding a leather pouch about 20 feet from the injured man, picked it up with his mouth, the soldier realising it was his own. It duly delivered it back to its owner, who, perplexed, acknowledged a grateful nod. The soldier drank whilst the dog stretched out in front and met his eyes. After a few minutes, it decided to pick itself up and continue onto the nearest mound. But of a sudden, the air was rattled by the sound of hooves. The black dog perched his head up and suddenly howled, stopping the horses in their tracks. The sound of conversation followed. The murmurs increased, and the screech of blades were heard drawn from their sheaths. The injured man took out his own, tapped a rhythm on the nearest rock, which was subsequently replied by a counter rhythm. Tensions eased, and 2 more Romans entered the clearing. The 3 soldiers quickly conversed, the 2 new entrants peering up at the direction of the mound. But the black dog was gone. The copse of pine beckoned instead. I don't know if you can see that groove, can you? It hardly weakens the wood. There's nothing really I'm taking out. I'm just lowering the level of the step on this side so that effectively what it does, when I get the step level, it drops the other one more forward. So this is my point. You see, I just drop this side down just a little bit. I mean, I've got a gap there, but that's fine. And it means this whole side comes down a bit further. You can see I've got my level. If I go to this side now, I've got that bracket which can be pinned to the next step down, whilst the back of it is resting on the joist, all for the strength. her texture, making ground, losing laughter. I seize upon her hidden fiber. First through woodland, in vivacious bird song. Oh, she makes me follow a treacherous lamb flow, and then through roads of mottled hedgerows. The list shows how after crow calls. Rain clouds loomed, and a distant rumble set the scene, as a few drops gave provision to what was about to follow. Suddenly the wind mimicked the black dog's previous howl, and the tips of the trees started swaying wildly. The dog was caught in an attentive moment, its nose and ears navigating the surrounding rocks with a renewed vigour. A baby's cry suddenly took it by surprise, and the dog doubled its efforts in its search. The rain poured harder now, and out of disappointment it barked at the violent air. The sound of the baby's cry got louder. If it was mistaken in its intentions before, there was no doubting them now. A woven cradle could be seen lodged in one of the trees at about head height. Draped over the sides was a woolen blanket. The dog struggled to quench its curiosity. It tried various angles to get a look in. Eventually, it scampered up one side of the tree as if its canine legs were invented for it. Crooning its neck, it managed to glance in. And there, with ruddy red cheeks, was a gurgling baby suddenly quieting from the visitor's entrance. It smiled and laughed a moment. It could not have been older than a day, still wet in the bonds. But the sound of clanking armour pursued them in the same direction. 3 soldiers glinted in the sun's rays that had momentarily escaped from the clouds. In fact, they seemed to strike a path towards the mound also. They too were drawn to the baby's cries. The dog took a few steps aside and watched on as the soldiers loomed over the cradle. Grasping at various directions, the baby's tiny hand first met the blade of a dagger plodding at its garment. The soldier in question was quickly reprimanded by his colleague when they both suddenly noticed 2 penetrating eyes peering from the undergrowth. Whether it was a rumble from the sky or a growl from the earth was hard to tell as a continuum seemed to exist everywhere. The air was thick with an unknown substance. The clouds began to darken even more. A lightning bolt tore at the sky. The agitated soldiers began arguing profusely. The rigid-injured man gave a second glance to the baby and started pulling at the branches. Suddenly, a bolt of lightning ripped at the tree in question, the rain pelting down now. It turned to ice. The other 2 soldiers raised their shields into the air, but the injured soldier had been thrown to one side from the shock, whilst the baby in cradle miraculously tossed from side to side as the tree continued to sway. It stood firm though. A great confusion entered the group as the injured soldier lay unconscious. Suddenly, one of the horsemen lurched into a gallop. The other kneeled at his compatriot's side. The dog was fixed in his stare. Merlin stopped crying. His mouth opened and rain entered it. The trunk of the tree suddenly gave a massive crack. It splintered and then began its slow descent. A look of horror seized the conscious horseman, the horses whinnying and flitting from side to side. He grabbed at his colleague's armpits and dragged them to avoid the falling tree. its slow collapse almost surreal in the wild elements. It buckled unexpectedly in a different direction. Baby and cradle all came tumbling down. The soldier let out a shriek as he slipped in the mud, the tree crushing the unconscious man. The baby rolled out and sprawled over the bleeding corpse, instinctively grasping at its armour. Latching onto its breastplate, a sudden paleness came over the motionless body. The black dog leapt into the air, the horses bolted. Everywhere was thick with pine needles. Men could be heard in the distance. The bewildered live soldier could do nothing more. The death of one was leading to the birth of another. The black dog advanced upon its object. Their eyes met, and it licked at the baby's face. The dead centurion's body, half crushed under the mass of branches, gave one last twitch. Its remaining heat cradled the baby's own body now. Within a moment, the area was engulfed by foot soldiers, heaving at the splintered tree. Shouts of exultation raged between them, and before the bodies could be located, the dog had already slipped away into the undergrowth. Yet another day in its life. So we're just on the final part now, really the top part. I've been reinforcing a few places, putting in some bigger screws, and I've made one or two mistakes, but they're not really mistakes. I mean, these things can be corrected. Like here, I cut too much out, and that's quite a thin piece of wood. So what I may have to do is just reinforce this section, just double up on that to the bottom, and you won't even know it. Just another piece to go down there. All this wood is rotten anyway. And progressing upwards, you can see it's quite a steep stairway, but that's good because anything bigger than that will probably get hit by the car. I've got to park a car here to drop off the water into the ark, so that's appropriate, that's fine. And I'll just make a little platform. I should have this done in a couple of days. Oh, kiss the salt that lights her feet. You smell her fishy bodily sweat. When turn her back, I make her breathe. And mount the strike and punch your state. Yeah, in and out I ride about until her body retreats her slow. Couched in arms of slumber deep, returns to limp a genitive sleep. Well, okay. It wasn't all enjoyable. I was getting angry at points. I had to remake a couple of bits. And that rod up there, that was going to be a post, a wooden post, but I remember using it to propping up some of the steps. And I just thought, well, that's appropriate. I can just use that as a handrail as you're walking up. You want to grab something to take that final step. So there we are. It's taken me, I was doing 1 step a day. It's taken me four half days. And I'm using scrap wood. I don't expect it to last more than about 3 years. So I'm going to treat it now with a mixture of diesel and spent motor oil. That works really well, so I use it on all the old pine wood. The good thing about this wood is that it's been salvaged from an old pergola and some of the brackets as well. And this is hardwood, this is not pine wood. So some of this will last for another decade or two, so long as I keep it treated. But you know, I wanted to make something that was simple and quick really, and I've been sort of sitting on this project for about 2 years. All it's required now is to put a grapevine, I think, and that was part of the idea of the design of the pillar at the front. So where you can see that money plant at the bottom of it, somewhere in there, I've tried to grow a grape before and it died, but I'm going to have another go, and this time I'm going to get a real vigorous type that will go through the whole pillar, work its way up, and somehow find its way on the top there, and hopefully meet up the jasmine at some future time in its life. So I can't do the honours yet, but I will do, and I will open it up, and then it will be available for my volunteers. There's a couple of things I noted which could be adapted in the future. One of them is it's rather steep, which is why I've got this. But welcome to my pleasure dome. It's going to have a granite top or something on there, because it's about the 4th top I've put on that toilet, and it's all rotting because of the rain. But you have to imagine it's going to be covered in jasmine flowers and hanging with grapes at some time in the distant future. Here is going to be a stained glass window of Dante. Dante's the thinker, and I've already made it, and it's an image of me on a rock. And here, well, it's not plumbed in yet, but it will be. And I will have a luxury bath. Eat your heart out, George Michael. You can't beat a bathroom like this. And just to give you an idea how steep this is. Whoa. I think I'm going to have to put something down there. Ciao.